die in the AIDS crisis.
Oh my God, okay.
Thousands of people died, and the government didn't care because it was primarily gay people. And I think if those people had been given support and health support and had survived and had been cared about and not totally thrown to the side and dismissed, we'd have so many gay people my parents' age. We'd have so many,
so much more progression in society.
We'd have so many 60-year-old gays, and it would be fantastic. And it just shows you. It just shows you stuff.
Have you ever heard of Bailey Sarian? I know Melanie has because she does murder, mystery and makeup.
Shout out to her because I'm obsessed with her.
She's fucking amazing. But she started a new podcast series called, I'm blanking, but basically she spoke about gay conversion therapy.
Conversion therapy, which still goes on, which is horrible.
It's nuts.
It's nuts, yeah.
And she spoke about the history of how basically the governments they basically started hating on gay people and telling people that gay people are bad.
Yeah.
So it was kind of instilled in society. I don't want to quote her because I don't remember specifically what she said, but I highly recommend listening to that episode. It's
super educational.
It's super educational. I was very whoa, I had no idea there was actually, there was a period of time where it wasn't that stigmatized to be gay, and then all of a sudden it became a thing.
Lots of things have happened that have kind of brought on more discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
There was a retranslation or a re-updation of the Bible at one point where somebody decided to translate basically translate a word that meant paedophile, but they translated it to gay.
Really?
Because they knew that if they did that people within the Christian society, people would start discriminating against the gays more, which it did. And it went crazy.
Religion.
So there was at one point where that stuff wasn't really, I don't think Christians liked it, but I don't think they were particularly, it wasn't in the Bible, which it never was in the Bible. But it got translated. I think people need to think about the way that things are translated and that, which Bible you're reading from. There's been so many. There's so many.
So true.
And I think that history is really important because non-binary is not a woke white Gen Z thing. It's just not.
I hate when people say that.
I hate it. It's very dismissive, I think.
Know.
Extremely dismissive because it's not true. It's ridiculous because a really good example is Hawaiians from 1800s. They had American colonizers basically invaded and was we won't be having any more of this, basically. And they had a beautiful culture of, they had probably gonna butcher saying what it is.
It's okay.
It's the Mahu. It's spelled Mahu, and then there's a line above the A and the U. And I don't want to totally butcher it because I don't want to offend anyone.
No, again, you're trying and educating. That's all that
too
matters.
White. But I'm trying. But basically, they had a kind of concept of another gender rather than the binary. They did have men and women, but they had this other gender called this word. And it basically meant somebody who embodies the soul of both man and woman. And
that's so cool.
And this person in that culture was highly regarded. They were, sometimes they were teachers, sometimes they were, the kind of caregivers, they were respected within that. And then colonization screwed it over. And the same things happened with, things like Aboriginals or Indigenous people. A lot of Native Americans have still and did have before a lot of colonization. I think that people gender, the structure of binary gender of men and women is an incredibly colonist issue also, because if you actually really delve into it, and I still need to read a lot about it, I still don't know everything, but if you really look, you'll find that it's not this stupid woke thing.
Wasn't it didn't it happen in Egyptian times as well?
Yes, there was so much evidence of Egyptian tombs where it's somebody has been buried as a woman, the way that, because they had very, very specific burial rituals, and it's they'll dig it up and they're oh, I wonder why this man was buried as a woman. It's it's because she was a woman, just not the kind of woman that you're looking for.
Exactly.
And you had lots of different cultures had a different idea of gender and a different idea of sexuality also. I just think that the human experience is so long and so vast and so complicated to think that, yes, the way we've structured things now is the way that it has been and always will be. Because that's just not how it's been. Like, our life as on Earth has just been so up and down and crazy to think that we have the same rules all the time. I think one day we won't have the rules of binary gender. Like, I think that one day it'll just be like,
you're a person.
You do what you do. You find out who you are when you hit an age, and even then, you don't stop evolving. You don't stop transitioning. Like, I think you're never the same person you are for 10 years or 20 years. Like, you're always going to be changing. But I think identity is so important because people who have not been able to express their identity just suffer so badly. It's just so bad for your... I mean, if you believe in souls, it's bad for your soul. If you believe in anything, it's just bad for your health.
Because it puts so much pressure on you. Like, even like
psychologically, it's just terrible.
Yeah, obviously, like even for me, like dressing wise, like I felt because I was a mom, I had to dress a certain way, and it sounds so stupid as well. Or because of my age, I had to dress a certain way. And I even remember a family member, like, and we were talking about the Gen Z thing, like I bought a pair of really baggy trousers, like jeans, because I was like, wow, they look so comfy, they're not tight fitting. And I'm like, yeah, I want to wear that because it feels like me. And I bought them and I showed them off. And they were like, oh, you're just like so Gen Z. And it made me feel so insecure because I'm like, I'm not trying to identify as anything but myself. Like,
and why does me for it?
Why does it have to be in this? And
like
then
my
again,
generation thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but you must feel that times 10 if I'm feeling it. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like times 10. Like, yeah.
I do think that you get a lot of older people who just think, oh, it's like this generation's thing, and I'm like,
like a fashion or something. I've heard people say
it's
that.
It's like you had all of your things, why can't I have my things?
Exactly.
But I think that I do dislike it very much when people do that, but I think you just have to be like, well, actually, here's the facts, bitch.
Exactly. No, I just like it. And even
you have to tell them, you have to be like, well, actually, you're wrong. Because of this. And I think the more educated you can be about things, actually, sometimes that just intimidates ignorant people.
I know.
If you just tell them how, but then
fight.
some people do love a fight, no matter how much your answers are good. And it's like
true.
I said,
they just want to argue.
It's like I said, picking your battles. Because like, I think that for non-binary people, they feel they have to explain their existence all the time, and I don't mind it so much because I like the idea of being able to educate people, and I think I'm quite empathetic of that. But I think some people are just very like no two non-binary people are the same, like anybody else. Like no two women are the same, no two anything are the same. Like everybody's different, and I think that if you ever meet a non-binary person for the first time, you just have to be like, they're this thing that is new for you, and you have to kind of interact with that maybe differently than how you've had to interact with other people. But a good way to deal with that is just to think of everyone as though you don't know what the hell they are.
Exactly.
Because you don't really. I mean, you can't look at somebody and go, they're gay. And, and you have lots of people who, yes, are a bit camp, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're anything, like, I just think that we need to separate this idea of, like, immediately knowing what everybody is, because isn't it kind of more brilliant and more interesting when we get to go on the journey of like finding out?
That's
like,
so
isn't
true.
it kind of more fun to be like, wow, this person's this and that person's that, and we're all so cool and different and fun, and like, but some people obviously hate that because they want everything to be the way that it's supposed to be, or the way that they have this ideal image of what people should be like, which
maybe it's like a control thing as well. Like, some people just need to be in control of the situation and feel like they know what's kind of, and then they just assume to try and make it like,
maybe.
I mean,
like, even like, if we, sorry Maggie, but even like, again, with like family and stuff, and it's like this whole idea, because I have kids, how could I like women as well? Like, oh, you have kids. How can you be bisexual? That's
ridiculous.
And I get it the most with family. Like, for instance, one of my family members came out as trans, and it was like a really big thing, and everyone was so supportive of them, and it was really awesome. Everyone was like, yeah, this is so cool. Like, thank you for opening up and sharing. And then I decided to share with that.
You were like, oh, it's a safe space.
Yeah, safe space. Wow, you're being so cool and open. And I finally, because I don't talk about this besides like with like my sister and my niece and stuff like that, but like I decided to say I'm actually bisexual. I've had sex with women and men. I've dated women and men, like, you know, but I just have never told you about the women because I felt uncomfortable. And immediately faces switched. It was like, no, you're not. That's what they said to me. Like, no, you're not.
You were like,
you're
what?
lying. Like, why are you saying this? And I was like, how can you be supportive of them, but then not of me?
Yeah,
like, and
it's a bit bizarre.
Yeah, I thought that.
But the thing is though, is that there is, you know, there's a lot of that within like the queer community where you get a lot of people discriminate against other queer people.
That's so true. I've heard about this.
It's really annoying because with bisexuality especially you get lots of lesbians who absolutely hate bi people, and you get lots of gay people who
I've heard people say you need to decide.
I think that it's
I think that
it's really
gender fluid.
It's really, I think a lot of it is that we're like taking concepts from a lot of like straightness are getting pushed into a queer space when really we should all be rooting for each other because we're, you know, not in a position to not root for each other. But it happens because, and in a way I think it was my dad who mentioned that you know, this idea of like that maybe like a lesbian wouldn't like dating a woman who's a bisexual because she's had really bad experiences with being like played around with, or there's some kind of trauma there that's like she's had a past experience where she then can't trust people, or it's like you're not really a lesbian, you don't really love me. And I think a lot of it comes from a lot of insecurity, and I think that it's a really shame because I think it's but I think it's really a shame because that does happen, and you get lots of gay men and lots of lots of like sexuality queerness who really don't like trans people, and they don't get the whole there's a lot of inner conflict within that community also, not just outside. And again, it's one of these things where it's like we really shouldn't be fighting each other on this shit. We should be like and I think it's just, again, there's so many different types of people even within that community, so it's like a lot. And I think we all have had different experiences, and there's just not one way of going about things, which is the whole point. You know, it's the whole point.
I want to bring it back to you. Yes. So let's talk more about your experience, just everyone else, because you're the only person that could describe your experience. So kind of
let's hear your story.
Unless I have like an evil twin, which I hope I don't. I hope.
She's standing right behind you. It's your alter ego.
In that case, my family have really held some secrets. Yes.
I just wanted to kind of like touch on relationships. If you've have you had like a first love, and what was that like? Because you know how you were saying in high school it was kind of difficult, and you would get asked and you'd be like, "What? Well, I don't know." Yeah. So how did you kind of like surpass that?
Well, I in the